Needless to say, I missed you all. I'm glad that we are here. And does anyone have any questions, suggestions, hypotheses, corners we need to round off?
I might need a reminder of where exactly we left off. If the last thing I remember is the collective realization of, oh shit, Sophia just stole the Haven from us.
Yes, Sophia did attune to the Haven, but the last of it, to drive it home, I guess, would be there are plans afoot, plots in the working. Hestia managed to connect with Dusable to make an arrangement for you all to meet and have the time to speak if you so choose. The location is relative neutral ground between the Camarilla and the Hakata. It is the Three Happiness restaurant at the mouth and entrance to Chinatown, Cermak and Wentworth. There's a refocusing of attentions and energies and a rejoining of the pact of non-interference with the rebuilding of the area from the horrible terrorist fire bombings that took place a little more than a year ago, that caused a stir and a hoopla and a mass wave of destruction. Everyone knows the anarchs were behind it, of course. So this is a retouching of those contracts and make sure that everyone is appeased and that the city can move forward in the spirit of brotherhood that it has always moved forward into. And Sophia, Felix, and her lovely sister have alighted at Felix's apartment. His home away from home, his space reserved inside the city, far away from all of his responsibilities in the southern suburbs. And most glaringly and most importantly, the big ta-da moment of it all was in fact Sophia's coup. Sophia's routing and getting her hooks further into the meat of what the coterie actually is, the shelter, its central base of operation, its home, its castle, and all of those other epithets for it. All right, so everyone knows where we are, correct?
Yes, I believe I now have an understanding.
All right. Well, without too much further adoing or adonting and beating this already deceased horse, allow me to extend my thanks. I can't say it often enough, nor with enough value, so that you all truly understand how much your skills, your energies, and your efforts mean to me. This is literally the cornerstone of every facet of play that I have managed to sink my hooks into and delve into since beginning to dive back into roleplay. Your skills, energies, and efforts make, well, they shade and color the world that I exist in when at play. And I can't put a definition that makes it clearly and succinctly as valuable to me as that. Thank you, and thank you. And if we have no further questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we'd like to round off, I'd like to say that this is officially Soup City Sins, Season 18, Episode 2. Underestimate the power you have. When we last left our coterie, they were in the midst, as always, of chaos. They were in the middle of coming to grips with truths, revelations, surprises, shocks, and stuns of a multiplicity of factors. mostly boiling down to trust given, trust taken, trust utilized, both in regards to what they've done to the world around them, what they've received from others, and what they secretly hope in their hearts to avoid their just deserts. The ball is in their court, having been tossed from one realm of the city to the next. The meeting with Dusable, the regent of regents for the Chantry of Chicago, the greater Midwestern Chantry. The location chosen, an optimal politically charged location. A meeting between representatives of the Camarilla and the Tremere, the One Kwai, and the Hakata at a nominally neutral territory, the mouth and entrance to Chinatown, the landmark that hundreds of thousands of Chicagoans have driven by, taking Cermak east or west, using the expressway going north or south, or simply riding the tributary that travels through the center of the city, the Red Line. The Three Happiness has been seen from a multiplicity of angles and is known by most as you've arrived at Chinatown. Its location right next to the fire house and the Red Line and the major tributary of Cermak places it at a convergence of different paths of the city. It's close enough to be viewed from the expressway. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, a landmark that the city was sorely missing with its most recent destruction. That night, which has soured relations between the One Kwai and the city at large, but also most succinctly with the Chicago Police Department, as many of their officers live in and around Bridgeport and Canaryville. That night of destruction of the Three Happiness resulted in what police and local authorities have attributed a night of terrorism, a local terrorism, because members throughout Canaryville and Bridgeport were gravely injured. Many can't remember exactly why or how they were injured, just that they were. There was a horde of screaming open mouths, and then trauma. So the meeting at the Three Happiness is hopefully to heal some of those wounds, to smooth over some of the fallout of that night, the night where the Chantry itself had been attacked, where Chinatown had been attacked. Those dastardly anarchs had done what they did. So, if everyone would be so kind as to roll your evening rounds as life, the semblance thereof, returns to your dead, deceased carcasses, animating you for one more night. And then we'll begin with our evening ablations, anti-alphabetical.
May I also heal aggravated wound?
Yes, of course. You can make that part of your evening ablations. What first thing that you do once your eyes take in the world around you?
going from 0 to 2 hunger.
The semblance of life returns as it always does. Just an explosion, and you are once more in the land of the living. It's a known fact that kindred don't dream. It is a known understanding that there is no subconscious release valve for all the tensions that a kindred goes through from night to night, which is what sleep does. Your subconscious mind takes over and processes everything that you've experienced, helps you work through traumas, victories, and defeats. That is no such thing that happens for kindred. There's just a switch thrown, and then you are dead. Dead to the world, as your remnant of your soul is somewhere in the ether between this world and several others that abut it. Many kindred, to ease the jarring reality of dying for the day, set about pampering themselves, dressing for bed, combing their hair, doing all of the things that most do upon preparing to sleep. A quick shower, primp here or there, maybe even a little late early morning TV as the sun is still a few moments off. Most, to save themselves the jarring effect of what it's like when your shadow soul re-inhabits your corpse, bother to close their eyes and attempt to maybe even put on a weighted mask so that when the ghost inspector of life returns, it's a little easier to process. In the comfort of Felix's home away from home, in the grip of the Southern Hakata Union's property, does Sophia set about doing any of those things? Did she take in the comfort that was therein, the silk robes, the pajamas, and all of that sort of thing? Or did she simply just drop where she was and start over again?
She is nothing if not accustomed to wealth. So yes, probably.
So having availed herself of the comfort of the space, having watched the night disappear as she disappears into the lightless, sunproof master suite. Because in fact, yes, it is in fact a full suite here on Millionaire's Row, and a forgotten portion of the city. When the semblance of life returns, what does her and Victoria do? What does she and her sister do? What are the first things that she begins knowing? Or does she know? Did she get a chance to speak with the coterie before dying? What the plan is? Did she check her phone? Did she bother to touch base?
She'll let Vittoria handle all that. Assuming she will just assume that they did as she asked, but you know how that works.
Yes, the vanity of power. It is when you speak, even a polite thing such as a request is in fact an order with consequences inherent. Failure is to be, well, rewarded with all that it is just due. And so it is no surprise to her when plans are relayed. There's a meeting after sunset at the 3 happiness, where you might be able to speak with Dusable.
She will prepare as best she can, not being home.
That is the beauty of wealth. There is a wealth of products, and it is clear that while richly appointed, they're not often used. And while rarely even actually needed as far as kindred are concerned, because there aren't any of the usual oils and secretions that make human beings all the more animalistic and filthy for it. There is still, the several $100 shampoos and conditioners and exfoliants and all of the skincare products that you could drown in if you so chose. There's a selection of various size dresses and ensembles at the ready. And as you all are working your way through making your selections, which works best, dark blues and grays and rich creams and mauve even mixed into all of the ensembles, you can tell that they are for tall or a taller woman. There's a soft rapping at the door.
I'll have Vittoria answer it.
And Felix is standing there, his hands clasped behind his back. And it's clear that he has made himself at home, or this is in fact his home, because his ensemble is not the somber, dark black and blue of last night. No, he's wearing a richly brocaded blazer, a warm caramel colored shirt beneath, slacks of slightly darker charcoal, and a new set of jewelry about his fingers and around his neck. His hair is, of course, slicked back and combed into a well-moosed coif. I was hoping that you all might be ready. I understand that we may have plans this evening.
Well, that will do. We were going to meet with the regent and iron a few things out, or so we hope.
Excellent. It has been a while since I've seen lovely Dusable. That is his name, isn't it?
If my sources are correct.
Yes. Very long time since the speakeasy days and sneaking out to the south suburbs to let his hair down. I wondered, does he still enjoy his evenings of being immersed in nothing but jazz and fine, strapping young men?
I'm sure we all yearned for an earlier age when things were simpler.
When?
But things move on, yes?
When you're ready, I'll be waiting for you at the carport.
I believe I am as ready as I am going to be.
As you all move from your suite through the abode, he stops as if he forgot his keys or his wallet or some small foible. I forgot indeed. I'm sorry. I do apologize. I didn't offer you an aperitif. Would you prefer such a thing?
I appreciate once again your hospitality, but I am fine this evening. We should be about the business.
Oh, very well indeed. And he waves his hand in the air, not at you or anything else. Just literally just hold his hands up and waves it as he's waving off God knows what. a fly, an errant gnat, though you don't hear or see anything, buzzing about his head, and you all make your way to the carport. You make your way back to the richly appointed limousine.
Vittoria, we will need to make arrangements to either have things removed from my original haven or to replace them. There are some things that cannot be replaced, however.
But of course.
You should know, if you do not already, that it has been compromised, so it could be dangerous.
Yes, Silvio's reputation precedes him.
He served me well for many decades. It is unfortunate.
Felix dares rest a hand on your shoulder. I'm sorry for your loss. And he opens the door as Victoria is moving to open it. He is just a hair faster, a hair more at home. Gone is, at least superficially, gone is the air of mourning that he had about himself. Gone is the light traipsing through the world. Seems as if he is moving more into the reported power that he held in the south suburbs. Figurehead or no, there is a lot of potential to holding a title. There's a lot of inherent ego that comes with it, and it seems as if it is slightly returning.
You know, when this is all finalized, I'll need an advisor. I assume you are interested in such a position.
It would be my honor.
Very well, we will discuss it further at a more opportune time, and also how we are going to accomplish the project we spoke of previously.
It's funny you should mention that. I have been thinking on such things. I'll regale you later once this matter is settled. I have several ideas that may be even more beneficial than I had previously assumed.
Of course, let us be about the business at hand.
And as you all enter the vehicle, it's almost as if he is prepared for this very occasion. The decor, while not changed, it is clear that the driver's seat no longer quite suits his driver. And instead it seems to be the seat moved forward, slightly raised, so that Vittoria will be more comfortable there. And he waits for you, holding the door open as Vittoria looks to you and waits.
She will give her a slight shrug and nod.
She moves to the driver's position, waiting for you all to enter, and he holds the door, waiting for you to enter.
She will slide in with as gracious a smile as she can muster in her current monstrous state.
Sliding in and pulling the door closed, Victoria is already in, and the car begins moving. The silent engine, belying the true power behind such a V12 monstrosity. And speaking of monstrosity, Speaking of silent and subtle, resting for the evening, dying for the day, at peace, not hounded by specters from beyond this world. How does that affect Miriam?
In general, I'm not sure that it impacts her a whole lot. Her personality never really changed a whole lot right up until the very end. So she is probably just, aside from being super weirded out about the whole thing, is probably just about as calm as she ever is.
There's a value to peace that if you don't have it, fake it until you make it, which has seemed to be Miriam's stand on most things. Unmoved, unwavering, for the most part unbothered. But having made herself at home, or somewhat at home, inside the shelter, inside the coteries haven, knowing what little she does of the coteries history in the city, does the mention of 3 happiness do anything for her? Does it stir feelings or emotions or thoughts or anything?
Not really. She's probably heard Lucio and Hesia talk about it a little bit the night before, but she has no personal history with it, since she's been kind of, from the time that she was embraced to just recently, just kind of maintaining her own little isolation and learning her art or relearning her art on different types of skin, and just being off basically in her own little bubble.
So, with the cost of rising for the evening, the cost of reanimating the corpse that she inhabits, and the beast growing closer to the surface, where does that place her hunger?
At 3. Not unmanageable.
That's what every monster says until
Definitely a little peckish.
it slips from your control. There's a worriness, I got this. But in the grand scale of things, while 60% is failing, 60% is more than half, which is better odds than most people have ever gotten in their entirety of their lives that something bad will happen. And at 3 hunger, that feeling at the back of the head, that feeling that vibrates through the tendons and acts as if it is in fact the animating force, it's strong enough to not be ignored. Of course, you can bite down on it and you can busy yourself with other things, but it is not to be ignored. It refuses to be ignored. It's not the susurrus whispers. No, it's the constantly talking far too loud, even though it's not yelling at the back of the head. It's the, we're gonna need to do something about this room, and the non-stop chewing off of the internal mental ear is where 3 is where, in the grand scale of things, yes, you could be more ravenous, but in the grand scale of things, you could be less ravenous by more than half.
which is totally fine because she is planning on going to her favorite little haunts after this meeting because they made a deal.
So Miriam's evening ablations with the voice clawing at the back of her head, twisting her stomach a little bit. Nothing, no mangling, no tearing, no shredding, no clawing free, but definitely a good closed fist jab every couple of seconds, letting you know that it's there and pressuring you to consider it. So plan in mind, and in her space, in her rooms at the shelter, what does Miriam do in regards to evening ablations? First rising for the night.
Get up, shower, get dressed. Apparently this is supposed to be an important meeting, so probably something a little nicer than what she typically wears. But still showing off her artwork. Hair, makeup. You know, the usual. And basically trying to figure out what the hell is going to go on at this meeting. And how they're going to react to seeing Miss Sophia.
So getting ready for the evening and nearly ready to depart. Where do you wait for the others? Do you go to their floors? Do you go to their rooms? Do you seek to help them arise for the evening? Help them to get their bearings and figure out what the game plan is?
Yeah, she might do that. Probably starting with Hestia first, because the greatest distress seemed to be hers last night.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. So you head off through the shelter. The thing is, and what, I don't know anybody's really bothered to look at the floor plan or consider it in the grand scheme of things. Everyone's gotten accustomed to where things are. It's interesting that Hestia and Lucio's room are essentially located to the building, to the closed off spaces of the former hospital that acts as their haven. It is through all of the winding mazes of the building, they're close enough together that they could repel or defend anything that potentially happened. And with Hestia having her suite of rooms as well as the labs, it creates a feeling. It creates a geomancy to the space that is undeniable. And speaking of undeniable, the damnedest thing happens, Lucio. You awaken initially with the quietude of your beast. You awake initially. You resurrect for the evening initially in relative peace. The whisper being there, of course, but it wasn't demanding. It wasn't eating the insides. It wasn't gnawing away with doubt and recriminations. And as you move to begin preparing, the voice grows exponentially as your dead flesh completely and totally mends the damage falling away. The damage which you still haven't properly addressed the reason of. You did the impossible and survived. You walked in the sun. And while you try to downplay it mentally and try to avoid it mentally, the truth of the matter is you covered a huge distance with not so much as one wisp of smoke, not one charred fleck of skin, not so much as a sun tan. And that, along with the compounding interest of your beast demanding sustenance. What are Lucio's oblations for the evening?
So just to make sure I remember correctly, we do have the meeting with Dusable tonight. I don't think there was any other meetings, were there?
Not initially good.
So Lucio then will go through at first his normal awakening routine of just making himself looking presentable, picking out his outfit for the evening. At some point during all of this, however, the thought crosses his mind of what his sire and grandsire are doing right now, and realizing that they are in the Dalton area where my sisters are supposedly located, and of course knowing their connection with Vivi and their investment in her future, an idea crosses his mind to possibly contact them for their input.
Excellent. And how might you go about that?
Well, a phone call somehow worked the last time. May as well try it again.
All right, let's give it a shot, shall we? Would you be so kind as to, you be honest. Would you be so kind as to roll your resolve plus technology? Your bane hasn't increased, has it?
It is still Bane severity of 2.
Excellent. Let's give that a shot, shall we? There's no way in hell that should work. You have already, chalked it up as a snowball's chance of being successful. Especially knowing the way that the power, the blood, manipulates everything around you. And the more you want something, the more it fights against it. Almost as if it's a counterbalance to things to keep you striving towards success with everything that you can possibly manage. And you're not sure what it is that you're feeling when you hear her voice on the other end of the line. You didn't even know she was your sire the first time you spoke with her. You had a quite lovely conversation. You didn't truly know that she was your sire the second or third time, but you put it together and one thing led to the next, and here you are listening to her voice crackle across this electronic distance. Lucio, how are you?
I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner.
We knew you were still on this side of the final death, so we gave you the time you needed.
To say that things have been hectic since the last time we saw each other is an understatement. But we can...
Yes, you joined your father's people.
A necessary action.
Whatever path to
survival.
Of course, whatever path to success can manage. How is your child? Are the rumors true?
We are working now to release them from their custody.
Those rumors are true. How much do the Tremere know?
Considering that my head's not on spike yet, I don't think they know the truth.
Excellent. So I'm taking it you're calling them a bit of assistance or favor.
I was wondering if you perhaps had any insight on what Dusable might want in exchange for Vivi's life.
Well, even with our abilities and technology, such a thing isn't necessarily something we should discuss at a distance. We have a few members in the city. I'll reach out and pass a word along. You are at your haven or your coterie's business?
My coterie's haven. A shelter.
Excellent. I will make sure to you as quickly as possible. It seems as if we've reached the end of stretching credulity. I will reach out.
Thank you.
The moment you hang up the phone, the battery is at 0.
Lucia will plug it in to charge and thank the fates that it lasted as long as it did.
Time waits for no one, and is the ever-hungry thief of always. As you plug in the phone and have it on, what would you say that was? Was that a word given? Was that a promise? Was that an agreement? Where in the grand scheme of things does that conversation place Lucio's faith in him being contacted soon?
I'd say that's definitely a word given.
Excellent. So with that sitting there, with his expectations raised, what does he do to continue his ablations, knowing that the beast inside, while always there, has decided to increase its volume? Not to the point where he's pulling out his hair or looking for the first thing leaking, but he is very, very close, considering that he's gone from the absence of that voice to now it has a friend and is tap dancing on the last 2 nerves he has.
He will see if he has any spare blood bags or anything in the haven available to slake a little bit of hunger. If there's nothing in the shelter, or he can't ask Kessia for anything, then he will go out and find a meal for himself.
he takes off into the night. Unless, of course, he decides to go speak with Hestia first, more specifically, because unfortunately his reserves that were at the Haven have been, well, depleted. There's been uses, there's been need, there's been, well, the beast. And while he still has several special reserves that he's managed to stock up on at his Haven, he doesn't have any here.
Then yeah, he'll go and speak with Hestia first, ask if she has anything, and see if she needs anything from him before he heads out to hunt.
Speaking of hunting, and Hestia, something about grief, anger, while in the living demands satiation, it demands food, demands something greasy or something alcoholic, something smoky, something, it demands to be stuffed with other things so that it does not gnarl and twist the guts, it doesn't cause the stomach to begin eating itself. For the dead, outside of the social comfort of attempting to feed, such things don't happen. For Hestia, in this moment, with the confliction of feelings that ended the night, she is not surprised that she rouses for the evening without any excess from her beast. It sits in its corner, the edge of her mind, like an angry cat, its tail flicking back and forth, looking from beneath its brows at her. You know that if she takes her eyes off of it, that it very well might pounce. It will probably take her ankles or maybe her calves, leaving scars all its way up across her. But in the moment, there's just its presence and its anger drifting across the dark. What are Hestia's oblations?
I see first when she gets up, she's going to mental checklist, kind of, okay, so this is what's going on tonight. I need to be on my game. We're literally heading into the Viper's Nest. And then she goes to washing face, cleaning up, pulling her hair up off her neck, cleaning her blades, getting dressed. She's going to make sure to wear something nice, but something that she doesn't mind losing if worst comes to worst. Something that looks put together but hides blood well and can hold things in the pockets. So, like trench coat, duster, something. And it's funny because she the duster she has is obviously a little too long, but she's never gotten it tailored, so it's just the thing. She's stuffing her pockets with like vials for rituals, things like that, so she's preparing herself to get ready to go. And she knows she has to eat because she's been at pretty peckish for like a couple days now, but there hasn't been a break or a pause long enough for her to go hunting. So that's present in her mind, and she's obviously eyeballing the beast right back, like, I know, I get it, but you stay your ass over there. So it's, yeah, getting herself together for the evening.
There's an old aphorism that everyone knows. There's no rest for the wicked. Or, oftentimes with the nicer versions, there's no rest for the weary. How weary would you say that Hestia actually is, after all the things that have transpired over the last few nights, over the last few weeks?
And this is the point. She's kind of at the point that if she literally was like a boss or a management or something at like a business, she'd be like, look, I'm putting in my notice and I'm getting the fuck out of here. That's kind of where she is, but she can't quit. She can't quit because this is hers, technically, and she's confused about whether it's still hers or not with the whole Sophia thing, but it feels like it's still hers. It feels like it's still her responsibility, so she can't just walk away from it. But if there were any way, shape, or form that she could in good conscience do so, she would.
Okay. So, as she thinks of it, as she takes it all in, as it were, does she make the correlation between how close Don Wojcik's plan were to success? How close to his final gambit being victorious he was?
There's a part of her that wonders if he wasn't completely successful. There's a very small but there part of her that wonders if the fighting between Sophia and Don Wojcik wasn't a smokescreen for them to let their guard down and let her in, thinking, oh, they're enemies, so that means she's here to help us. There's part of her wondering if this wasn't the plan he had the whole fucking time, and that he actually managed to get his way. It sounds ridiculous, and she's like, yeah, no, that's not really what happened. But is it though? Is that really that far-fetched? And that's the kind of thing that's looping in her head as to, did he actually win? Or did us killing him give him what he actually wanted? Like, that's what's going on in her head.
I see. So, wrapped up in her thoughts and contemplating all of that, Don Wojcik, Sophia, where the coterie currently is, the meeting with DeSalvo, all of the plans that Wojcik, that Don Stiglione had laid out to winnow away their self-reliance, to winnow away their sense of joy, to put them in a position where the only victory possible for them was to give up. What would happen when she heard a knock on her door?
Probably very much skittish cat, jump out of her skin, and like, what now? What? Like, I know shit's on fire. I know it. What's now? What's going on now?
And well, that may be truer than not. After all, once an arsonist, always an arsonist. Miriam's there at her door.
You might as well come in. I know we didn't have a lot of time last night to talk about what's about to happen, but I think you should be prepared for what's about to happen, because we are very much walking into the Viper's Nest. Yes, the Sophia thing is an issue, and we are going to have to figure out how to walk in straight-faced and pretend that we don't know she kind of betrayed us for whatever reason. I am one problem at a time, kind of. Dusable holds our future in his hands, and we are going to meet with some of the most dangerous creatures in existence, even so far as almost more so than lupines. Do you know what the Wan Kwai are?
She will just simply arch an eyebrow.
Okay, so we are created when we die and there's blood in our system that belongs to another creature like us, and we were at one point human, and our soul re-enters our bodies and it makes us what we are. That's the understanding I have of us and the time I've taken to study what we are. The thing with the Wan Kwai is, like, we are vampires. They are vampires, but the thing that has inhabited them was never human. Demon is closer to what took over their bodies. There's this... I wish Alex were still here because he could explain it better. But what we found in talking and looking through books about what kind of things they are, and basically what happens is they were either bad people in their life or something similar, or they believe they were bad in their life, and it allowed a demon to take over their body so that when they died, they became like vampires, but demons. So like hybrid vampire demons. And they eat other vampires. Like us. And they breathe fire. So, problem, bad, all around. And originally what happened was there was a treaty in which we were not to enter their territory without permission, and they would leave us be without that being a happenstance. But then some way, shape, or how, vampires started going missing a while back, and some of those vampire carcasses ended up in the basement of the Three Happiness. Now, I didn't see it entirely because our friend Dizzy, which we talk about sometimes, was looking for her missing coterie mates, the ones she had before we got here, or she got here, and then bad things happened. They got separated, and she apparently found one of her coterie mates in the basement of the Three Happiness, being carved like a turkey and used for sustenance. And she burnt it to the ground. While we were having a meeting across the street trying to peacemake between us and them, because one of our other coterie members, who was a little bit of a loose cannon, had got caught sneaking into their restaurant, thereby fucking up the treaty we had between them and us, which the prince was not all that very much happy about. And then in the course of this situation, we kind of burnt down Chinatown a little bit, and people were killed. So, can you understand why walking into a building full of the people that we attempted to kill in self-defense to make peace with somebody who could recall the blood hunt on us, and the other person that we thought was a friend and let in, who took the shelter from us spiritually in man of... She waves her hands around. You know what I mean. Those three groups all in one space, and us.
So we have demon vampire eating vampires.
at the door?
Yes, it is.
Miriam will crane her head back to look at the door.
Well, the only other person that should be here is Lucio, so obviously, come in.
You have
Pardon
gotten. I'm sorry. Just a small intro. You've gotten accustomed to Lucio looking banged up, damaged, less than hale and hearty. It's been a while. Him entering with unmarred flesh, dressed in his usual attire, and not something ill-fitting, not something from someone's borrowed closet, but his attire. It's been a while.
Sorry for the interruption. I was just wondering if we had any spare blood available in the Haven. Seems my reserves have run out.
With the fact that she had been rambling and running on to Miriam, and then this complete switch of direction, both with the look and the conversation, it's like, what? So she's kind of googly-eyed, staring there for a minute. Since when do we have spare blood? I don't know.
Since we started dragging every corpse we make back here.
Well, usually the reason we're grabbing the corpse back here is because somebody has drained them of all their blood.
So I take it that means we don't have any here.
No. But I was just explaining to Miriam the lovely situation that is the Three Happiness.
That's fine. I was gonna go to a club after anyway. But okay, so we have demon vampire eating vampires. We have powerful people who can say, "Oh yeah, you're dead. Have fun." And Sophia.
All in one spot. Oh, also we're trying to get Bibby back before they figure out that things happened. So there's that. Yay! And normally, I would assume that we should all take care of hunger before this meeting, because we don't know what's going to happen. And the last time I ran into DuSable at a meeting place, he had Julian with him. Do you remember Julian, Lucio?
I remember.
Well, see, he's leveled up since we last saw him, and he has this nifty new power of stealing other people's blood and drinking it down from across the room.
See, that last part of that sentence was the important bit. I was about to say we can all do that.
No, from across the room. Multiple targets at one time. Yeah.
Neat. So do we actually have time to go eat first? I was under the impression that this was happening soon.
Probably not time to go hunt. And I really hate what I'm about to say, but hear me out. The Sunchild brought up a good point yesterday. We have all these people living here.
Mary will just let her get like halfway through that sentence and just arch an eyebrow, but not the inquisitive like previously. Like, mm-mm.
And she is like twisting and yanking and rolling the hem of her shirt while she's saying this. I hate it. I hate it. But if they're consenting and they say okay to it, it would be okay. Because then it would save time, and then we wouldn't have to worry about hunting, and we could get to the meeting. But
Mary will just cross her arms.
I feel so bad because I feel like I have been fighting this for so long to not do this very fucking thing.
Then don't do it.
But what else are we supposed to do? We don't have time.
Exactly when is this meeting?
With travel time, you'll get there just about fashionably late if you left 3 minutes ago.
Then perhaps it's best we either find someone quick or we just leave now.
So, the cars? Who's driving?
Suppose I can.
And we'll nod and walk out the door.
Looks kind of defeated, and she looks up at Lucio like, did I do the wrong thing? I feel like I'm falling apart, and I don't know what else to do. And she's saying this as she's walking past him out the door, almost as if she's forgotten he's standing there still. I think he won. I think he won. This is what he wanted the whole time. He's dead, but he won.
He didn't get the Haven, though.
She turns around and holds her fingers like a little tiny bit apart. That close. We're splitting hairs because even though he didn't, somebody just like him did. That close. She walks away.
We can... well... we can table this discussion for another time. We do have a meeting that we're already late for.
So, Sophia, no, I'm sorry. I said Sophia. Miriam, you were heading to the parking garage to get the car?
Yes.
Excellent. Would you be so kind as to roll your wits plus awareness?
Amazing. That'd be 5.
It is amazing the difference a few weeks, a few months, a few accelerated boot camps exposure to all of the width and breadth of the many things that surround our world. Stepping into the parking garage. The flickering lights are nothing special. They go on, they go off, they go out periodically. It's not a big deal, it's nothing to it. The chill running along the skin. Again, no big deal. It's Chicago. The weather. If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. The fact that she can't see farther than 6 feet in front of her face, that's a big deal. The entirety of the parking garage. As she steps out, she realizes it is dark. What she thought was flickering lights were shadows moving past it. As if the night has gotten darker. Looking over her shoulder back into the shelter. And everything looks fine. A little dim, but fine. She looks forward into the parking structure. And it is pitch, inky blackness. None of the light from the street lamps sheds any ray of light into the structure. None of the flickering lights that you can hear, that electric buzzing, sheds enough light for her to see by. And the chill on her skin reaches down to her very bones.
Miriam will sigh, cross her arms, and shift her weight to just one leg. And just wait for the two of them to follow her out, because she's not going to walk into it. That would be stupid. So yeah.
As you stand there just outside of the arc of the swinging door behind you, Lucio, would you, caught up in conversation as you were with the considerations that you were on the tip of your tongue, knowing what it is that you're wrestling with mentally, would you be paying that much attention to Miriam standing in the doorway? Or would you just move past her toward the vehicle?
Well, assuming Lucio sees the same darkness, then I think that number one, he would activate Oblivion Sight, and number two, he would move forward expecting certain people.
Asked you.
I still know distracted, but she'd probably just bump into the back of Miriam and wonder why there was something in the way.
Lucio keeps walking into the dark and disappears. His footfalls literally as quiet as he is. You can still hear him when he's walking normally. So 2 steps and it gets lighter and then nothing.
I guess we'll be jostled a little bit and then say, huh, I guess he knows them.
Remember what happened? It got really dark.
And as Lucio enters once more into the depths of darkness, we turn our gaze to Sophia, riding in the lap of luxury. While the limousine that she's currently in, the town car limousine that she's currently in, is not hers. It is of a similar styling. It is an SUV. It is raised. It does have tinted windows deep enough that, well, if the police wanted to, they would definitely hassle her nonstop. Luckily, Chicago, like many other urban areas, wealth buys a certain level of invisibility when it comes to the police. Allows her to see the world outside as she and Felix glide along the city streets, moving from Millionaire's Row northwest towards Chinatown, towards your three happiness. Chicago, for all of its sprawl, for all of its urban metropolitan savoir-faire, is a city divided along certain lines, certain boundaries. You can feel when you cross them the architecture of the neighborhoods, letting you know where in the city you might be. And crossing east to west, even in such a small space as this, it is clear that you've crossed several different neighborhoods, several different towns upon themselves, several different boundaries. As the architecture changes, as the people and denizens moving along the sidewalks and even in the cars past you change. It's remarkable that in such a short time that Sophia is able to denote those changes. She may not know the reasons behind them or the enclaves that she has entered into, but the differences are no less startling and no less visible to her. And it's not a trick of light. The world literally does change. There is a different climb, there's a different social echelon, and as they ease across Cermak, driving underneath the red line as it goes, roaring past them above their heads, Victoria circles the block once and then twice. And while normally circling a block is a distance of about roughly 4 to 5 minutes at the outside, if you're going the speed limit, which in and of itself is a rarity in Chicago. But circling the block here takes a full quarter of an hour. The traffic snarls and moves with its own pace. The people cross the street whenever they want. The lights are a suggestion. And for all of its chill in the air, the area is congested with tourists. You see people stopping and taking a picture underneath the archway. You see people pointing and oohing and eyes to the architecture around them. You see people hanging off of the statuary placed here and there across around the block and across several open spaces. You see people taking pictures in front of grocery stores and local mercantile places and in front of the Three Happiness. You see people exiting the train station, taking the steps in the elevators and moving as if they know where they're going, only to stop and stare up at the arch that leads into Chinatown and point toward the Three Happiness and begin snapping or TikToking or various other social media apps as their phone screens are lit up with glee. Quarter of an hour later, you find yourself easing into a parking lot just northeast of the Three Happiness, just the other side of the train station. Are there any plans that you have? Are you waiting for your associates? Are you waiting for any messages? Are you demanding any conversations of those invisible forces all around everyone?
I will ask my ghoul if they think that this is a giant setup, because I kind of think it's a giant setup, but then I'm paranoid.
I think everything is a setup. I don't think that they have the skill to pull this off. There are too many egresses by foot, by public transportation, by vehicle to get in and out of the area. I noticed a surprising lack of police presence. And this is clearly a tourist trap. You'd expect normally that there would be at least 3 to 4 patrols that we would have passed. I didn't see any. There's also a marked lack of those annoying box cameras that they place up everywhere.
That could be nothing more than discretion.
Yes, but there's not enough. There is, without knowing the full measure of whatever forces we are aligned against, there's not enough information to determine whether it's a trap or whether it's a standard operating procedure. The lack of police, the lack of cameras, the wealth of tourists, mortal kind in and out of the area, providing some level of cover and protection for us, it would be a very hard-pressed thing to be trapped here.
Well, I would say we proceed with a certain amount of wariness, assume for the worst. As far as waiting for the others, I assume that they are throwing a tantrum and will be here late. I'm sure they have figured out what has transpired. In fact, I know that they have figured out what has transpired. But we will play dumb. Shall we then?
But of course. And she steps out. As she steps out, Felix chuckles to himself and steps out just quick enough that she can't get to the door and holds it open for you.
Ever the gentleman.
Well, certainly someone must be. It might as well be me this particular evening. I've never had the pleasure, without my dear view, to enjoy this portion of the city. Perhaps tonight will be different.
Perhaps we have been brought here to start trouble, unknowing to ourselves. But there is only one way to know. Would be remiss to assume that there is no meeting and not show up for the meeting.
As you all make your way toward Three Happiness, moving with throng of tourists who are taking pictures of themselves and their environment and pointing and oohing and eyeing, you see that there are two clearly designed to be security individuals standing out front. And clearly designed is no stretch of the imagination. It is literally, you can see the handiwork of someone who skillfully, though vaingloriously, left their signature along their skin. These individuals standing there all but blank-faced, stony and stoic, large and muscular, were not something that came about through the natural chaos of something even as divine as evolution. These beings were built. As you draw closer, and their eyes are in fact reflective. There's no pupil or iris there, but from a distance you wouldn't notice. But it's only as you get closer and their remarkably similar visages that you realize smooth of skin, no pores for facial hair to even grow, long hair used to disguise the clearly, perfectly designed ear and jaw structure, muscles bulging with far more tensile strength than it should have. You can all but see the fibers of the muscles in their neck from the distance. And then the clothing. As you get closer, you realize there aren't any pockets. There aren't any actual clothing there. What looks and appears to be clothing from a distance is in fact them. We are having a private event.
I believe I was invited to such.
They look towards each other, not quite making eye contact, but the mirror is where their eyes are kind of reflecting the other. And they look back towards you. 1 minute, please. The slightly shorter one doesn't bother to turn. He just takes one large step back and wraps his fingers across the door. A few moments later, a gentleman, roughly 5'7", about 180 pounds. You can tell that he, in life, worked out, though that could be any number of years removed from today. They're fine. The regent invited others of their ilk. He nods and steps forward. We are glad to have you at the Three Happiness. Welcome to our grand private reopening.
We appreciate your hospitality.
Enter and be welcome.
Thank you, we are grateful. And in we will go.
Moving between them is like moving between two power lines. You can hear the vibration of energy, and it feels like a slight rumble along the skin. And while your hair, as dead as you are, does not stand on end, you can feel the power moving between them, almost as if you're moving through a particularly strong electromagnetic field.
An old dead part of her will be intrigued by that.
And speaking of being intrigued, stepping into the darkness for most brings up memories of childhood. For most brings up those fears from ancient man and alone in the dark, the need to cling to fire and to light, to crawl into somewhere nice, dark, and secure where you could just sleep away the dark time and only operate during the day. However, for Lucio, stepping into the dark feels strangely inviting. It feels strangely like home. You don't know where you get that notion from. Your home was filled with life, was filled with smiles, songs, hard-working effort. But this feels similar. This feels all too welcoming. And she just taps you on the shoulder, materializing out of the shadow right next to you. There wasn't anybody near.
How do you do that?
You have to give yourself over to what lies inside you, and you'll be able to move from one bit of darkness to the next. Eventually. You wanted to speak. We don't have much time. We are in the middle of raiding a particularly problematic member of our Congress, if you will. What is it that you might need?
DuSable has Vivi, and we're trying to get them back. But there are also some other matters that may require your assistance. One of which involves a voivode of the north who is after a certain grimoire that I believe is in your possession.
She pauses and looks around the shadows. That could normally be perceived as an accusation. You would not be doing that, would you?
Of course not.
So the Voivode of the North is looking for a grimoire. Let me see. I'll pass the word along. And as far as Vivi, what does she know? What can she tell? How dangerous is her being in the clutches of the regent of the Tremere hands? And do you have it in you to do what is necessary if that is the case?
She worked with us for quite some time while she was Dizzy's retainer. And of course, she knows her true lineage. She knows our weaknesses perhaps better than most of our enemies. If worse comes to worse, then yes, I know what will have to be done.
Excellent. That means that she wasn't, if it comes to that, it means that she was not in fact the best choice for our particular blood. She should be able to fight herself mostly free, or survive whatever it is that might come her way without revealing anything. If there is a fear that she might reveal anything, then you must ensure that there is nothing left of her to be found. No trace of any of her hidden information, no allies out there in the light where we can't reach them, and most pressingly, no proof that you, a member of the tower, created a child without their blessed permission. Unless, of course, you are going to forsake all of your ties and connections to that lovely ivory tower of yours and come join the rebels.
You make a tempting offer. The Tremere, I know they have some ways to question us even beyond death. I can think of only one way that would be able to circumvent that.
You need to make sure that opportunity and option is yours. After all, it is a very sad master of themselves that would allow someone else to do their dirty work for them.
See, realistically speaking, do you have any inclination of what we might be going into?
If you need a moment with the Regent, mention his secret child, who still exists in the south suburbs. She is not very far from where we are. It may come in handy.
What is their name?
Mal Davis.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. While the accident of your creation and your continued existence was making the best of a bad situation, there has been nothing but hope in regards to your success. And so far we haven't been let down. Continue making strides and improving yourself and improving your footprint within the tower, and more of what the end goal can be will be revealed to you. And as the area begins lighting up and the flickering light of the nearest sconce blinks and blinks and blinks. It's annoying because even though it's dim, it's still too much light all at once, and that's what it feels like for you. As if someone suddenly just turned on all the lights in all the places of the dark. And that's what it looks like to Hesha and Miriam, standing there at the edge of all of that inky blackness, and then all of a sudden Lucio is standing there frowning at the light as if he may have tapped it or pushed it back into place and caused all of the shadows to dissipate.
Is the illumination a metaphor or just literal?
Literal.
No, Miriam was saying that.
Both. I believe we are better equipped for this meeting now.
Oh, that was fucking creepy. But, sure. We should get a move on. We're pretty late. And you know it's gonna be crowded down there. She gets in the car, and that's it.
All right, off we go.
I would also like to say during the drive over, Lucio will relay the information about Mal Davis to Hestia. But only once we're in the car, just to ensure that there's no secret hidden Nosferatu somewhere in the shelter quietly listening in on our conversation.
Oh man, you're spoiling all of Martin's fun, aren't you?
Right.
You know, it's funny that that's not really all of that much of a precaution, considering that as reckless and foolish as it might be, a Nosferatu could quite easily, using their potence and their daring, crawl up on top of the car while you all are before you all take off. Its weight properly balanced and displaced, and listen and ride along holding on to the top of your car, and no one would notice them because they're not moving. The car is.
So many secrets. So, yeah, we're going to walk in here. United Front. Pretend we don't know what we know until we need to know it. Pray to whoever's listening that we make it out of this tonight. And maybe we'll just become Tyrex again and unicorns and rainbows.
One can certainly hope.
The ride north to south in Chicago is well, like all distances traveled of more than a few blocks, more than a mile or so, crosses several boundaries in regards to neighborhoods, crosses several boundaries in regards to architecture and where the people are in their path through life, socially, economically, And it is never less jarring than moving from Rogers Park down through Streeterville, down through Boys Town, down through Wrigleyville, down through the downtown area. Because you all, being local Chicagoans, do everything you can to avoid actually taking the expressway. No one likes the Dan Ryan. No one likes the Eisenhower. Everyone occasionally takes it because they believe that they'll get on at just the right time to avoid the push of rush hour, which is more of a constant. It is a lifestyle. There are rush hour drivers at all hours of the evening, and you all do your best to avoid it. So as you move through the city, taking the relative side roads instead of taking the expressway, instead of taking Lakeshore Drive down, you get a chance to watch Chicago change and shift. You get a chance to see where those other former separate divisible towns were absorbed into the contiguous whole. And you get a chance to watch the nightlife try to live. And in more than one corner, at more than one red light, you all think of the many times where taking that left or that right led to finding something else interesting about the city, something deadly that threatened your immortality. Another moment where a car was lost, or a tire was shot out, or any number of things that have happened to you all in your time here in Chicago. And all too soon, all too long, you find your way to Chinatown. You ease east over Cermak towards Chinatown, and you can feel it before you get there. There's an excitement to the air. It is always a good time. There are always loads and loads of potential victims. There are always tourists moving in and out of the area. There are always a reason to take in the oohs and ahs of the place, even if you're not supposed to ever really be there. Do you all use public parking, or do you try to park in one of the parking lots?
Whichever would be closer to our meeting site.
Well, with the box parking, it's wherever you can fit that'll get closer. The parking lot gives you a dedicated space to know to rally back to. Whereas parking on the street does the same thing, except for there are far more witnesses on the street. It's far less safe on the street if you have to leave in a hurry.
Parking lot, then.
As you ease into the parking lot where Dizzy helped finish making a mess of this area of Chinatown, the train rockets past over your head. Are there any last considerations or conversations you all will have as you make your way towards your 3 happiness?
Everyone good?
Shoot, there was something I was gonna remember to say, but then I forgot it. Don't be careful how you lie, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. They're really good at reading people, and it's like they can stare right through you. So be careful what you say and how you say it is what I really mean. Both them and DuSable, because again, he's fucking regent guy, yeah, magic man. Just be careful.
Nope. pretend like I'm talking to a fairy in the fairy tale. Got it.
That would be helpful, yes.
To say that you guys are hassled on the way in would be accurate, but it'd also be an overstatement. You all are held at bay while they check with inside, and you guys are finally allowed inside. Walking between the two mountains of muscle out front is literally like playing very closely to power lines. You can hear the electric buzz and hum. There's something not quite right about them. They're too similar in look, and their clothing is too plastic, too rubbery. Something's a little off with it. As you all get inside and settle into place, you realize that Sophia's already there. Sophia, her sister, Dusabo. And it is 22 after. Let's take a quick 10 and I'll be right back, guys. Back, everybody. So, to underscore what we walk into, what we open our mind's eye to, the Three Happiness is one of the foundational landmarks for Chinatown, and it sits at the mouth of Wentworth and where it meets Cermak. It's actually the mouth of Wentworth. Wentworth goes south nearly all the way to 103rd. Probably 111th actually, because there's a little small cutoff where it mixes with Vincennes and cuts over, but it's a fairly long street, so there is magic in that at the end of things, at the places that are the highest or the lowest, or where things meet. And the Three Happiness is directly across from the portal into Chinatown proper. The pavilion that sits north and slightly west of Three Happiness is an extension of Chinatown and considered part of Chinatown, but it is more the tourist town square for Chinatown, whereas Chinatown itself stretches south along Wentworth and east and west of Wentworth by a couple of blocks, all the way down to roughly 29th Street, which doesn't seem like much, but in that small, densely packed space, the architecture allows for a maximum amount of population. The area itself is one of the major enclaves of Asian Americans in Chicago, specifically Chinese, Han, Hmong, and so forth and so on. All of the many different diverse ethnicities of being a Chinese American exists there. This is its own world, much like little Cambodia on the north side of Chicago, just off of Thorndale. Except for Chinatown, even with all of the gentrification going on around the area, with all of the inroads being made by the city to beautify the area, it is its own kingdom. Unlike most of the other neighborhoods that, you have to go outside of your neighborhood for the larger stores. You have to go out of your neighborhood for this or that or the other. Everything that you need to live and exist is there in Chinatown. Everything. There's a major import. There's a major import-exporter directly across the street, just west of Wentworth. It's there on the corner. It's also the local meeting place for the real power of Chinatown. Hence the reason why the Three Happiness is a figurehead. It's a national landmark, a local landmark, but it is a figurehead for the real power. It's much like St. Jerome's is to the shelter. It's a vent. It's a way to let off some of the pressure that comes with all of the magic that exists there. Both everyday, average social pressure as well as the mystical and magical. And when you all are inside this not quite open for public space, the history rebuilt the hand-carved tables, the immaculate tablecloths, the hanging chandeliers, the stair that leads up to the second floor, the slightly open floor plan and dining space. It feels as if you've all stepped back in time several years. And for those of you with an occult of 2 or more, heightened senses, blood sorcery, or oblivion, you realize that you're sitting on top of a grave mound of energy. You realize that much like St. Jerome's and the shelter, that the overflow for all of the magic in the area exits through this location. And you all are not alone in that understanding. There are several members of the local community sitting at various of the tables on the west side of the room, while Dusable, Arichto, and Sanche sit at a table closer to the north side of the room, leaving the south and east portion of the room for you all to find yourself seats and tables upon. It is clear that they are waiting, standing, even as they're sitting on ceremony.
I apologize for my tardiness. I was not given an exact time for this. I am Sofia Rossellini, Pater of the Akata.
The elderly gentleman sitting nearly center to the local community group nods and inclines his head. Dusable mirrors the act. And then Dusable stands. I am sure that you know who I am. But for the record, I am Abraham Dusable, Regent of Regents for the Chantry of the Midwestern Tremere. We are here to rejoin once more into our truce of non-interference and mandate, if not a true peace, at least an armistice, so that commerce might continue and that all parties might find themselves in an amenable situation to profit and perhaps broker some friendship amongst ourselves. With me, my co-regent, and I am sure you all are aware, Sun Che, our conduit towards one another.
Sophia will nod her head respectfully to each in turn as they're introduced. She will introduce Felix. This is Felix. He has a last name. I assume she would know it.
Calixte.
Yeah, Felix Calixte. He is my chief advisor, my capo, if you will. And my half-sister, Vittoria.
Dusable inclines his head and looks past you towards Hestia and Lucio and Miriam, then back. The elderly gentleman does much the same. He doesn't bother to introduce himself. However, his second, who sits on his left, stands. And we are the honored body of the blood court of Chicago's Chinatown. We welcome you in the name of peace for this conversation. There were actions taken by kindred against us a little more than a year ago. We have forsworn that any kindred who enters into our territory, who crosses the boundary of our territory, are fair game. We've grown accustomed to the taste of kindred vitae. We've grown to enjoy it. For while the kindred of Chicago have declared us enemy and violated the truce and understanding in every way that they can, like children sneaking their fingers into dirty, dirty places, the kindred of the south suburbs entered into a contract with us. They took our excess wares and they provided us with kindred. They're enemies. Is this what you too are seeking, furthering? Or is there another reason why we should not continue feasting on the vitae of the foolish? It is funny you should mention that. We have a problem that we would love to seal our hope for a truce and a peace with. We take a blood tithe monthly throughout the entirety of the month. We make arrangements with the blood czar, to whom you are also in league with. We will ensure that none of those in good standing ever crosses your border or boundary, save with your express leave. And as proof of our words, our pact of non-interference, after all, strong walls make strong neighbors. We, and he nods to Sun Che, who stands up and eases from the room, have brought a gift. And we present the gift to you and leave whatever it is that you might decide in your hands. And I can't say the same for the Hakata, but I believe that they also might have the forethought to have brought a gift.
Tess had looked towards Gisable and she was about to say something, but when they mentioned bringing a gift, she kind of paused and then looked at Lucio, knowing this is not going well already. And then looks at Sophia, because technically she hasn't mentioned that they are no longer her under her purview. She just introduced the people she was with. We hadn't said anything because we were trying to provide a united front. So looks at Lucio like, what do we do now?
Of course, but given the bereaved nature in which we had to prepare, I'm afraid our gift will be delayed. However, we wish to deliver a small offering of souls, for which the esteemed One Kwai can do whichever they please, obviously. But it will take a few days to deliver on that.
The Blood Court understands that these moments are not for everyone, and we would never seek to impugn either the Hakata or the Camarilla's honor. We assume that you all are upstanding, forthright, and as damned as we are in your own ways. We do not wish to engage in further enmity. So, disposing of your criminals and making use of the unuseful. Is this, how did you say, Giuseppe? Amiable. This is, of course, just a formality, as the proof will be in our actions going forward. As well, the proof will be in your actions going forward. We brought a gift of sorts for you all. Take these with our regards. And he claps his hands, and 4 individuals move through the building, sitting small pint-sized bottles in front of each of you. It's foiled, embossed, and it even has a label on it. The label on it is some kindred that you all don't immediately recognize. Sophia has no idea who it is, and Miriam, of course, is just some pale kindred. But Lucia, Hestia, you know what Alston looks like. His mind, his images seared into your minds. And that's Alston center, front and center. Over his shoulder is Valkyrie. This is the last of a particularly refined stock. I thought you all might enjoy sampling how sweet a Tremere and Hakata Vitae might actually be in a safe environment.
If Hess could turn green, she would be green right now. Because looking at that face that she has looked at from both actual seeing and being is making her sick to her stomach. And it's her hands are in a fist at her sides, and she's trying not to run screaming from the restaurant. Almost so much to the point of like cutting into her palms with her nails, because this whole situation is wrong, and she feels like she should say something, but she doesn't know what to say that's not going to light up the powder keg that this whole situation is right now.
Sophia will file that slight away for later, much later. And we'll thank you for your generosity. This is a very well thought out gift that you have given us. I appreciate it.
Many things can be profited by working together. He begins, and Dusabo stands up, clearing his throat. I believe Sunche is back with our gift. And in she walks. And if the moment could not grow more tense, Sunche walks in with a gagged, large-bodied male. His salt and pepper hair looks familiar. His glasses look extraordinarily familiar. The fact that he is handcuffed and bound doesn't take away from the fact that for all of his size, you all have seen him in the company of Vivi. You all have seen him in the company of Dizzy. You all believe that the blocks placed on him were enough to keep him safe. But it is clear that safe is no place in the city for anyone who has been exposed to what the kindred actually are. And as the elder Dizik brother is led in, Sunche smiles as something green and sickly lit dances behind her eyes. This gentleman, Dusal begins, is an illustrious electronic hunter of things that go bump in the night. Several instances he has been proven to be collecting further information as to what the kindred, the Wan Kwai, and other individuals are. We believe his connection to and nearness to several kindred in the past has opened the pathways of his thought. So we present him here to you, someone who knows far too much of what our world could be. And there's no greater gift than presenting a sword or dagger, I understand. This is a dagger aimed right at the heart of the kindred, to vouchsafe our trust and faith in you. Whatever it is that you decide to do with him will seal our compact, our truce, our peace. And with Sunche smiling, and the elder Dizik brother standing there before the blood court of Chinatown, the kindred of the city, and the Hakata Pater, with all that might mean, I thank you all for a lovely episode. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night all.